right, we're going live. We're gonna review what Balkan says about the new 2025.3.
Let's jump straight into Revit. And here we are in Revit, and let's start off with some of the most exciting features. And the first one is we finally get an option to turn on and off any installed plugins. So when you install plugins like this, they usually appear as an additional tab in Revit, and sometimes you want them, sometimes you don't. So it's nice that you don't have to uninstall them, but you can actually check them on and off. Let me show you how you do that. You go here to the Manage tab, and then on Extensions panel, we get this Add-ins Manager. Looks kind of like a Lego. So let's click on that, and it's going to open up this add-ins manager. Here you can see all of the installed add-ins, and more importantly, it's going to show you the loading time for all of those. So what this means is when you start up Revit, if you have a lot of add-ins installed and plugins and so on, it's going to take a very long time to start up Revit. You can notice the lag between having no add-ins and having a lot of them. So here it's actually going to.
It's sort of funny. We were just asking Jaffe about that, weren't we?
Yeah, I was going to say, I know we just had this conversation, and I almost feel like he mentioned this.
Yeah, well, you know why he mentioned it?
Because he watched this video.
Nope. Because, and forgive me, Balkan, if I'm incorrect, but I would have to bet that that's going to be where I'm going to deviate from most of the people that we're going to look, as they've partnered with Autodesk. Okay. So the truth is, half of Jaffe's help calls are because these add-ins begin to step on each other. They use address information, and what happens is, remember what Jaffe tried getting me to do is to remove the other add-ins. Because there's so many add-ins out there that if you really do start loading them all, you and I have already noticed that. Wouldn't you call it a bug that it takes so long to add those add-ins?
Yeah.
How long your Revit takes to start?
Yeah, just with that Rhino inside Revit, it was a very noticeable difference.
Doesn't this smell like Autodesk not really fixing the problem, but at least giving you a
pat under the carpet?
Sweep it under the carpet. We resolved it. I'm going to keep going.
You report, okay, so for example, for this one, it takes 3.9 seconds additional loading time on startup. And you can imagine if you have 10, well, it's going to take 40 seconds. So it can get quite long. So you can simply turn them on and off here. So for example, if I want to turn off these, I can just like that, turn them on and off, hit apply. Now this isn't going to make them disappear right now. It actually says here, so the changes will be implemented in your next Revit session. So you close down Revit, you start it up again, and now those add-ins will not be turned on. And of course, you can always go back here and turn them back on.
Now, let's also review this fact that, and I don't think this review is actually the one I was looking for. I want to actually see what was new in 2025.
Yeah.
Because I have not looked at it yet. Because I was too busy doing real work. Right?
Yeah.
But it's sort of ironic that a lot of the new commands that were released in the 2025, from what I saw, were actually just add-ins only years ago. So this is getting to be in a real nasty situation, because what ends up happening is you'll be at your company, and then if you switch to another company, if they're running a bunch of different add-ins, and a lot of times you don't have the ability, some people even restrict that you can't add the add-ins.
Correct. Rosendin was that way.
Right?
You had to run the add-ins they wanted run, and you couldn't run. I couldn't run. What was the original section box one?
Coins auto section box.
Yep. They didn't want me to use that.
Yep. Because Autodesk installed the section box add-in like I'm just talking about.
Yeah.
And see what this is doing is it's creating this nightmare. It's creating this nightmare for us to deal with.
Well, the fact that that doesn't take effect until you restart Revit, and we've already discussed that we don't really restart Revit unless we absolutely know our resources have been depleted, and that's the only way to get them back.
And that's where the bug fix, this sweeping it under the carpet, is really just not an acceptable solution anymore. I mean, for as much as they're charging for the software, this does not seem like a viable direction to go. And ironically, we were just watching that casework stuff. That was an add-in. Anyway, thanks Autodesk for what you did do. Should have done much more.
You also have the option to disable all add-ins like this if you want to. So you can do that. And we also have this show selected. That's just going to show you what's active, what's not. And that's pretty much it with this particular menu. Okay, now moving forward, we also have changes to the structure dialog. So whenever you have any item like a wall, like a floor, like a topo solid, or a roof, or even a ceiling, when you select them and go into edit type, we have the structure where we can edit the layer structure of that family. Now we have this option. When we select any of the layers, we get duplicate. So now we can easily duplicate these elements, and then we can change the thicknesses, or we can change the material or whatever we like. But it's just a little bit simpler and easier than using insert if you already have something at a similar material or similar thickness. It's going to shave off a few seconds.
Seriously. 15 years later, I've got a stud wall with a layer of gyp on each side. And 15 years later, I can finally duplicate the gyp I've created on the one side and put it onto the other side.
Yeah.
Once again, shameful.
Here and there, and overall it's going to give you an advantage in efficiency. As I said, it's going to work with walls, floors, ceilings, and topo solids. So here, for example, we have these gypsum wall boards. I want to add 2 layers instead. Just hit duplicate and we're done. If I did insert, I would have to go and find the material, find the function, find the material, find the thickness, and it would just take a lot longer than simply hitting duplicate.
Nate, you don't need to do what he just said. What you want to get used to is copying and pasting those values, and you can copy and paste those values.
Okay, moving forward, we have room centering. So if I open up this floor plan that they have here, if I wanted to center all of my room references, so here this is displaying our room and this is our room tag. Now you can see that the room reference is.
This was the add-in that I was talking about. You remember the case add-ins?
Yeah.
Which were impossible to find because Case decided to go. They left the Revit world altogether, but they wrote the most incredible set of add-ins. This was available in 2015. So we're talking that it took Autodesk 10 years to build this into their program.
Yeah.
Once again, shameful. And that's what's important about what I want to do on our blog is just call it the way it is. The same way as with the casework. What they wrote, it's not an insult intended. Okay? That casework is just too complicated for the average person to work with. That just is what it is. Okay? I think I see the beauty in what they're doing, but we got to be honest, because that's the worst thing about Revit is it can send you down into swamps where you're like, you had to recenter these rooms. right? And most people think that recentering these rooms is a good idea. I will tell you it's a better idea to understand where all of your equipment is and get those room locations into a good spot so that even if electrical's turned on or even if plumbing's turned on, that room tag is going to by default go to the proper location because you understand that's what this is doing. This is making this room point be so that any new plan you set up and you say tag all rooms, that's where it puts those tags. It
Yeah.
does move the tag. When he moves this, you're going to notice these tags are not going to move. But what most typical people don't understand that if I put that room centroid, that room marker in a good logical space. So like in this room right here, I might want to put it right in this dead space so that on all of my plans, that room tag lands in a good spot. And you see,
Yeah.
when he does this open office, it's going to put that centroid right over this column, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any new plan, including any of the mechanical plans.
Tag's going to overwrite the column. You're not going to see it.
That's exactly right. So, granted, it was nice to have this command. This was a beneficial command to have, but I would recommend more that if it could go put the centroid in a non-busy spot. Now you're talking about what I would be expecting to pay $375 a month for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which is why I own my software.
Here off to the side, room tag as well. Sometimes you want to recenter those. So here, if I select this, go to recenter reference, it's going to bring it here in the middle. And then if I select my tag, here it's going to say move to room reference. So move to that exact position. Now you can still have your reference off to the side. And then if you hit the tag or select the tag or go to move to reference, it's just going to jump to that position. So it's going to make it a lot easier to manage the position of these references and tags. Also, you can do this on a more global level by going here to room, drop menu, recenter, reference, and it's going to see all 5 that we have, and it's going to recenter those. And now I can select just one of the tags, right click, and go to select all instances in this view. So it's just going to select all of them. And then if I go move to reference, now as you can see, automatically all of those are going to be centered. So I can save a lot of time with this automation. Next.
Why is the open office not centered?
And let me ask you this, Brian.
The lobby doesn't look to be centered either.
Let me ask you this. There might be a room separator line somewhere.
Yeah, but okay, I don't see how mathematically that would be centered. I don't think that's centered.
Let me ask you this, though. Something like we ran into in the casino a bunch where a giant room crosses into 4 separate sheet views.
I don't think you have an advantage to that. I think that's where I copy. I get all my tags straight, and then I copy and paste them.
Yeah.
That's going to be when we go over a cleanup set of drawings.
Okay, I was just saying.
Okay. Looks like they added spell check finally.
We have spell check. So it was really annoying not having in Canvas spell check in Revit. So if you make any mistakes, you're not sure. Here, as you can see, we have spell check. So it's highlighting this word with a little or underlining this word, telling me that I need to check the spelling. And now if I highlight this, right click, it's going to give me some options. So it's going to say, okay, so if we want this, or here it's going to give us even more suggestions, or I can even just add this to dictionary as a word that I want to use and it's not a mistake. And then I can say, okay, I want this to be easier. Actually, in this case, I just want this to be easy like that. And there we go. So we have spell check. And finally, we have exporting.
Why the hell was it easy in the damn spell check? Why was it easily? It was every word other than easy.
Yeah.
That didn't make
Are
sense.
you telling me easy's not in the dictionary? I think they roll this stuff out. It's a lot like those kitchen cabinets. people roll it out and then they don't have to use it.
Background progress. So now when we want to export anything to PDF, so for example, here we have, let's say here we have some sheets. For this particular sheet, if I want to export it, or even better, if I have multiple, when I go here to File, Export to PDF, what you'll notice is that here we have the option to export in background. So this was already available, so I can click export, and now this is a background process and I can continue working in Revit. See, here it says it's exporting in the background. That's okay. I can now continue.
Why do you think that was?
Because I remember having to print a large set of sheets and you just had to get up from your desk because it was painful to sit there for 23 minutes and watch it happen.
No, even more than that, Nate. Every time I had to release a new set of drawings for the next revision, it took me 14 hours to export all the drawings, the PDFs.
That's ridiculous. Could you work in that time or no?
Well, see, what they're saying here is they did this so you can work in background. You know what I would actually do? Something you would not think is illegal, but is illegal. If you read your end user license agreement. According to Revit, you can only open one copy of Revit with your license. But I will tell you, there's a lot of times where I'll open 4 to even 6 copies of Revit. When I was printing, that's exactly what I would do, because I would open up the mechanical, I would open up the plumbing, I would open up the mechanical piping, I would open up the electrical, and then I would print all those sets. And then I would go cut the grass and do a couple other things. And when I came back, all 4 sets of prints were done. Then I had to do that a second time. And that's why it took that many hours. When I said 17 hours, because I had a computer that was able to handle that. You know how he just said it's doing it in the background? What I would love to test is I would love to have you print a set of drawings in the background, me print them the way that I'm doing them, and see which way is faster.
Okay.
Now, that's going to be strictly related to the hardware and the number of threads you can get to that hardware.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest. This is after being flim-flammed for 15 years, waiting for the next release on bated breath, and then begging the people that I was working on the project, please let me do this in the new software. That's not the way it normally goes. Okay. And that project we just worked on, the casino, that project, we were told we had to work on it in 2020 because that project was started 6 years ago when they started drawing it on the boards for the architects and the engineers. So it was all in 2020. And see, that's the sneaky little thing that Autodesk doesn't tell anyone is if you're trying to do work for multiple jobs, you're probably going to need multiple copies of Revit because someone else is going to determine what version of Revit you're working in. You understand why that is? Because you can't
All
do.
the splits have to be in the same version.
That's exactly right. You can't be doing the plumbing in 2025 and I'm doing the mechanical in 2024.
Because they've never allowed Revit to be backwards compatible. You could take the 24 and open it in 25 as a background, but the 25 guy or the 24 guy cannot see the 25 file.
Oh,
you
yeah.
want
I
to,
remember you telling me that.
if Autodesk wanted to, hey, if anyone from Autodesk is watching, if you want to impress me, you just make sure that 2026, one of the greatest enhancements is it can be read by 2025. Then I'll say you earned your money. Okay. Because what happens, Nate, did you remember that computer I was working on the other day showing you those old files?
Yeah.
Remember how you laughed at my hard drive, my gig hard drive? My gig, 1 gig solid state hard drive was full.
Yeah.
You know why it was full? Because it has 5 versions of Revit running on it.
Whew.
And they all use up the hard drive space. And anyone would tell you, well, maybe they would. Most people would be restricted from telling you that don't ever try to load Revit on a drive other than your C drive. It will never play well. And your C is your primary drive.
Yeah.
Right? You said, oh, I got a secondary drive, and that would seem to solve your problem. Revit is unbelievably taxing on on your primary hard drive, and you having to have loaded 5 versions of Revit or 4 versions of Revit. It's despicable because they don't make a solid state fast read hard drive that's capable of handling that much. So then people start running into problems, and then they start buying a new computer, and it just exacerbates the problem in that you've got so many copies of Revit just because you got multiple jobs.
Didn't we just see a comment in Reddit earlier that said how many versions do you keep running at one time?
Yep.
Or how many do you keep loaded at one time?
Yep. Well, and more importantly, when we were watching that guy who was doing that cabinetry, I showed you he was doing 2017. He skipped 18, which I don't know. 18 was the good one to jump onto. He did 2017, 19, 20, 21, and 22, which means his hard drive was almost full.
Wasn't 17 to 18 the big text problem that blew up all your sheets?
That's why most people strayed away from it, because they finally got their text size right. Once again, another thing Autodesk will never admit to, but the reason there was that big problem with the text size is because their text all the years before 2017 was not the correct size. 3/32 of an inch was not 3/32 of an inch when it was printed. Let's watch the tail end of this one Hummer
working in Revit. However, down here, you can notice we have this process, and as you can see, it's now completed. So this was exported. Of course, if you have more, it's just going to show you this progress here. So it's this little button at the bottom showing all of the background processes you have running at any particular time in Revit. That's going to conclude all of the new features for this recent Revit update.
Now, if I go back, to him, how would you find? Let's see, videos. This is by time. So, how many months ago would have been April? Should have been.
I'm curious to see what that one video was.
Which video is that, bud?
It was all the way up at the top. He interviewed an Autodesk product owner, I think. That one right there to the left. I interviewed an Autodesk Revit product owner. Huh.
Sure, let's watch it.
In life, there are memories that will never leave us.
This video is going to be quite different to what I usually do. So instead of a Revit tutorial, we're actually going to have a Revit interview. So today I'm going to be interviewing Mocha Yang from Autodesk. She is the product owner at Autodesk, and you'll soon learn what a product owner in Autodesk is and what do they do. So the idea behind this video is for all of us to learn how is Revit made, behind the scenes, how are updates created, and how people at
Nice
Autodesk
pick, mate.
choose what is going to be updated and how. And most importantly, how can we as users influence that? So I think this is a great opportunity, especially for beginners, because I'm guessing a lot of people on this channel are beginners in Revit or they're intermediate users, and they have very specific and different needs to experts who have been using Revit for 5 or even 10 years. Now at Autodesk, usually this feedback comes back from experts because beginners usually don't know that they can actually provide feedback. So that's why I think this is a great opportunity for beginners to have their voices heard and perhaps influence a little bit in how Revit can cater to them a little bit better. So without any further ado, let's jump into the interview. So hello, Maka. Thank you for joining me for this call. I'm really excited to have you on my channel. And just to get started, this is something that I didn't know at first. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Autodesk? You're a product owner, so what does that even mean, and how does that work inside of Autodesk?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you for having me today in this conversation, and hello to the audience of Balkan Architect. Yeah, so I work as a product owner at Autodesk. I joined Autodesk 4.5 years ago, and since then I have been working with Revit. Firstly, I was a user experience designer, and then I transitioned to a product owner. Like most of the audience here, I also have an education background in architecture, which is also very common in Autodesk, as many people here also have experience in the AEC industry. And this experience allows us to emphasize better with our users. That is also why I'm so motivated in solving the problem for our users, because I was also one of you folks, and I can also feel the pains that you told us. Yeah, so as a product owner, my job is to understand the needs of our users and translate these needs into features that our development team can build. And I work closely with the developers and also experienced designers and quality assurance engineers in a team. And our goal is to solve the right problems for our users in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you're kind of managing a set of tools that needs to be built or I guess adjusted or modified, upgraded in the future, and then you see kind of what's the best approach.
Yeah, right.
Okay, perfect. And just one question, kind of on those lines you've mentioned. So you have the architecture background. What kind of drove you to go to work with Autodesk? Were you always kind of software oriented, and then it was a natural next step, or were you a BIM manager or something like that? How did you make that leap?
So how I turned from architecture to the user experience or product design is I feel that my my interest is more like solving the actual problem for the individual end users. So that bring me to study the service design after graduated from architecture. And then I found like my knowledge in the architecture and also for the knowledge of service and experience design can fit perfectly in a role in the Autodesk. So that's why I seek this job and hope to help to like work with the tools better in their lives, and yeah, just to make.
What does that mean to you, Nathan?
I don't know. It doesn't really seem like this interview is very professional. I mean, I know it's coming from a YouTuber or whatever, and I know it's, you know, not necessarily the most professional of setting, but it seems like she's kind of skipping around the problem or sugarcoating what she does rather than really.
What if I said it seems like a lot of word salad?
Yeah. Like I would like to.
It's amazing how that's become a term this year. I don't know what she's saying. I haven't grasped it yet. Have you gotten it, Eric?
No, it's not. It's political. It's a political view. It's her selling
Let's see, because who knows? Maybe they're fixing it. Maybe I'll reach out to her and tell her what I think the best update would be to 2026.
Make people.
I have a feeling you're correct. This seems like PR work.
That's what I was looking for.
Life easier by doing some enhancements in the software.
Okay, really interesting. I've just created a video a couple of weeks ago about how it's really powerful when you can connect two passions, two interests into one, and then that makes you a very powerful individual in terms of your job and career. So it sounds like something that you have done here. So for the next thing that I would like to ask you is just kind of your day-to-day job, and I understand you help on the user experience, and how does that look like? How does the inside of the factory look like when it comes to updating, let's say, a tool set in Revit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our process often starts with discovery, and we gather the information about the problems our users met, and we try to understand their workflows, their needs, and identify the gaps between the current workflow and the desired workflows. And once we have a clear understanding of the problem, we move on to the product delivery, and we will develop different solutions based on the identified opportunity, and we iterated these solutions again and again based on the user feedbacks. So yeah, I know we will talk more about how your feedback will influence how we make decisions. Yeah, and I can also give you an example based on a feature we released in the Revit 2025 version. So if you know that in Canvas wall wrapping control tool, it actually started from a Revit idea, which is posted by a customer, by a Revit user, saying like, can we have wall wraps at end 1 and end 2 as instance parameters? So from that piece of idea, we conducted a few user interviews, and we asked users to show us how they manage wall wrappings in their projects. And we found that they need to duplicate wall types in order to have one end of the wall wrapped and the other end of wall not wrapped, which is very time consuming, and we know that will result in more chaos in managing these wall types. So after understanding this problem, we developed some solutions, and we also made some prototypes quickly and showed them to a group of Revit users and gathered feedback. And from this feedback, we realized that although we heard of asking for parameters in the beginning, we found that having in-canvas controls will be more easy to use and learn. So we implemented design like that. And also before rolling out that feature, we had a lot of rounds of testing with the users in the Revit preview release. We will also talk about later, and we ensure that the good quality of that feature before rolling out.
Okay.
Your father knows about saving money. Everything I'm wearing, I've had since boot camp.
That's really interesting.
That really
so
goes
it
to show
goes
you
from just the
I'm sorry. That really goes to show you that they really don't use their software.
No, they need someone to use their software to find the bugs. And Eric will be he'll be right there with me to tell you that's what we did is we searched out bugs for many, many years. And he even called it out in 2018 when they changed the text. That bug messed a lot of people up. I can't tell you how many bugs I've been bitten by on their new release, which is why most people remember we because otherwise they didn't have this problem. You wouldn't have everybody using different versions of Revit. We would all use the same version of Revit, right? We wouldn't have 4 versions of Revit. But there's a lot of companies that are like, no, we don't start using Revit till it's been released for at least 6 months. So it's on 2025.3 or 0.4 before we're going to start using the Revit because we don't want to deal with those bugs because those bugs have always been there.
You
So
dropped out.
you're exactly right. They don't use their software.
In 2010, I believe, when they switched to ribbon format,
Yes.
I was working at Odell, and if you had an OSE printer, I got into the habit before you ever hit the print button, you hit save, because 35% of the time when you hit the print button, everything would just shut down. It would just go away.
And then you lose your changes.
That's a crazy bug.
It's funny. It's funny because 2010 is the release that really sticks in me because that is when they went to the ribbons. And one of the parts that I loved about Revit and I hated about AutoCAD because I was making the transition from AutoCAD to Revit was if you ever worked in the original software before Autodesk bought Revit, okay, that would have been like Revit 6. It was so fast to open. I mean, as soon as you double clicked on that icon, the software was up and working. Within 3-4 seconds, it was immediately up. And when they added the ribbons, that was when all of a sudden it would take 15, 20, 30 seconds to open it. Okay. You start adding the add-ins like we looked at previously, and you really quickly find that now it takes you a couple minutes to open Revit. It actually gets to a point where I think Eric's told you before, we don't even turn Revit off. Why waste that time? When you're ready to draw, click. Make sure you save when you're done.
And when you worked in an office format where you might not be able to leave it running all night, the habit that I just got into was you get to your desk first thing, you turn everything on and get it opening, and then you go get your coffee or your drink or whatever.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Now, the sad part is what I was talking with an architect yesterday about was when these jobs, and it's funny because remember what I was telling you about BIM. If you notice, the one thing I would say this is 100%. This is only related to architectural. So there must be I don't know why they call her a product owner, but I guess that means she sort of owns the responsibility of that product. She's only looking at this from an architectural standpoint, more than likely. And I'll tell you who the red-haired stepchild is who's been ignored for far too long. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing.
Well, civil was really lagged for a long time.
Civil's not even on the map. Most civil people will never even make the transition over, and they're missing out on an awesome piece of software. Because when I show you what we can do with the civil, it's not as broken as everyone thinks. It's just, I don't think they could ever find anyone who could figure out, because they did play with it a little bit. Because I know in one of the recent releases, 23, 24, it might have been 24, they went from topo surfaces to topo solids. So they basically started redesigning from the ground up, which introduced a whole new set of bugs when they did that, which they're now resolving. But the civil is really been left out. That it's not, I mean, most civil people won't even think about Revit as a real software for civil purposes. I tend to disagree with them. Like I said, we're going to do some pretty cool drawings, and that should prove that that you can do what you need to do. It is a little bit awkward. You have to know exactly which lily pads to step on to get across that swamp. And I'm telling you, it's more alligators than lily pads. That's why most people don't go that way. But mechanical, electrical, and plumbing have seen very, very, very minimal upgrades. The biggest upgrades that I've seen is I have seen they tried to work out some panels and how to get those panels to work, right, Eric? In other words, it was really hard if you put your distribution panel in first and didn't have that system made exactly right.
Yeah.
They fixed some of that. They fixed the fact that you can re-host a connector, which is something that we'll end up talking about. Some things that were absolutely necessary. But what they've done is they've spent the last 10 years with you would think I would say the number one priority being architecture. I don't think that's the case. I think the number one priority they've had in updating their Revit is towards structural. Structural has received what I would consider the most enhancements.
Well, that's in effort to score more money and get the people away from Tekla and the other things.
Well, that's exactly what it's about. It's about the fact that Tekla was adopted more by the community, which then sets your BIM project up in a problem right out of the gate. Because Tekla, though it's called a BIM software, you're not in the native Revit. And if you're not in the native Revit, then you got slowdowns, you got problems with how you put the files together. Now all of a sudden you're playing with Navis and all this other stuff. You're missing out on the Revit as a BIM tool. I'm gonna kick this back on. Let's see if she has anything good to say.
Comments and ideas from the users. Then you're gonna have to brainstorm how to actually make it work for everybody. I'm guessing that everybody has kind of their own way of working in Revit, and everybody would like their own custom tools. But of course, it can't work like that. So you kind of create this design that would accommodate the large number of users. Okay, so in this whole process, what is kind of the most challenging part? Where are kind of the biggest challenges in getting this new update through and making sure that it's going to be accepted properly by the community?
Yeah, right. Yeah, like you mentioned, like different users may have their own like customized ways of using Revit. So it's very challenging to balance.
Not may. We had to come up with our own ways of getting things done because the software didn't do that. That's very deceitful how she said that. She said that as though us users wanted to not have a standard way of doing things. But instead, for years, we've been told, oh, no, Revit can't do that. And then what we've done is we've figured out a way to make Revit do it. And sometimes those ways are good and sometimes those ways are painful. But I think that's very unfair to phrase that way.
All the needs from all types of users, for example, users with different level of familiarity with Revit. So that's why we wanted to connect more with new Revit users so we can have enough representation of all the user types to understand the problem holistically when we design and develop these new features.
Yeah, that's really kind of something that really got me thinking in terms of just how new users and experienced users have different needs. And because I'm obviously working in bringing people into Revit, getting them up to speed, and making it as easy as possible to learn something as complicated as Revit. I understand it can be really difficult for them when they see this. Okay, so there's another layer of tools added to that, and then another layer of tools in addition to that, and so on. So it can be really complicated and overwhelming. So it's really kind of making a fine balance between what the
How many times have you felt complicated and overwhelmed, Eric?
Yeah. I'd rather not to go back. I'd go back to those times.
Well, we have to go back to those times to drag Nathan through that.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to be interesting.
experts need, and also making it just let's say simple enough for the beginner to be able to use. So I understand kind of the duality between those two sides and how it can be difficult to get them to agree. Okay, perfect. So when it comes to the Revit community, and in this case, my audience, everybody watching this video, how can we help improve Revit? Especially my audience, there's a lot of beginners, a lot of students, a lot of people that have been working perhaps in AutoCAD. Now it's time for them to upgrade to Revit, and they're in that beginner stage. Luckily, this audience can give you some of that input on the user experience of a beginner. So how can this community help Autodesk make Revit better for everybody?
Yeah, so we have a lot of different channels that you can contribute and actually influence the Revit product. And these channels will require different level of involvement. So you can choose any of them based on your preference or your time and effort. So I can give you introduction of all of these channels one. So the feedback channel, which require the least time, is the Autodesk AEC public roadmaps. So you can visit our public roadmap and offer feedback to Autodesk development team on individual features. And you can mark these features as critical, important, or nice to have. And you can also share a note to provide more content.
So this is for existing features that, or not existing, but features that that are kind of in the works, and you can provide feedback on those.
Yeah, that will be an introduction of the features on our roadmap. So that was something planned for the future, but you can have you can see an introduction of these new features and share your thoughts on that.
Perfect. Okay, so and one thing to one thing to mention for everybody listening, I'm going to be leaving a link both in the cards up and also down in the description of this video. So for all of these options for community involvement when it comes to Revit updates and upgrades, so links will be there, so you can kind of choose your level of involvement and you can get started there, so you can check out those links. So now, yeah, please continue to the next level of involvement.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And another way to contribute without too much effort is the Revit ideas. You can share the ideas for future product features directly with our team, and you can also collaborate existing suggestions with your peers. And also the heat of the ideas, like how many votes on it, will be influencing our product map and how we prioritize our features.
Okay, so this is that side where you kind of, this is the idea of a new feature, and then people can vote, and then you can see, does the majority need it to be one way or the other, and then you can kind of create this informed decision moving forward. Okay, perfect. Are there any other ways of providing feedback?
Yeah, definitely. And if you want to contribute even more, you can join the Autodesk research community. And here you will be able to take part in the invite-only user interviews and also usability testing sessions and also some surveys. Also, we have an exclusive community hub for the community members. And in the community hub, you will see the research result shared in that hub. So you can see like how your input will
Best 200-word essay in 10 minutes will win $200.
I think I'll win.
No, I'm gonna win.
impact the design.
Are you getting anything from this?
Not overly. I mean, would you spend the time filling out surveys and stuff? You might. I'm not interested in that.
No, I don't think I would be. I mean, that would be something you'd want to be compensated for. I mean, that's to me, that's confusing. And I guess, once again, if Autodesk happens to be watching, if you provided me with the software, I wouldn't have a problem doing it. I could see making the effort.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the mistake about the Revit upgrades. With the amount of upgrades that I've seen, in other words, the information that's been upgraded, I don't think it.
It doesn't work. It'd be like having to if a new brake pad came out, you have to buy a whole new car.
Yeah, where I'm going, I think number one, your next upgrade should be backwards compatible. Number two, your next upgrade shouldn't be happening in 2026. I think you should put some effort into your upgrades like you used to. So let's talk about that. How often did Autodesk used to upgrade? Right? What version did you start working on?
Are we talking about Revit or AutoCAD?
I'm talking AutoCAD.
I do not remember. 1990 was the first time I think I touched
That would have
AutoCAD.
probably been about AutoCAD 10.
Yeah.
And probably was AutoCAD 10 for Windows. That was probably actually a little bit before you. You probably started in 11, which was about 2 to 3 years later after 10. And then 2 to 3 years later, they did 12 and then 13. And 13 was a nightmare. But that's because you used to run AutoCAD on DOS. And that was the switch over to Windows.
And when did it get named? Was it 2000 when they went to the year naming?
No, I'm pretty sure that was 2010.
Oh, wow.
No, you're right. It was AutoCAD 2000 was when AutoCAD. You're right. Yeah. It was AutoCAD 2000 that went to the yearly upgrade. But what my question is they that happened for a reason. Do you remember what the reason was that happened?
I think it had to do with when Windows did it.
No. They didn't have they didn't have a quick enough turn cycle that people just stayed with their AutoCAD they were running and they wouldn't do the upgrade. So that was when they started they called it a maintenance plan. And they said, if you give us this much money every year, you'll be on the maintenance plan. Now, this maintenance plan was like you bought the software for, I think, $7,000. I think I paid about $8,000 for the software. And then every year I would give $700 for the maintenance plan. And that continued all the way from 2000 to in 2017 and 18, people started discussing this neat little thing that these people at Autodesk were talking about, which was we're no longer going to sell the software. We're going to go to subscription, which is rent the software. when they pushed you off that buy the software, and the only way that they had a way to get revenue to come in was to charge you for a maintenance pack, they no longer have that problem. There is no reason they should be releasing a new revision every year. And the sad part of it is it should probably be more like 5 years.
Yeah.
And I've had this discussion with Jaffe multiple times that all they're doing by having this yearly release is they're making the hardest software translation that there is. It's even worse than AutoCAD into Revit or Triforma into Revit. It's Revit 2022 into 2021, the one that doesn't work.
Well, and if you do hold off on putting out new updates, then you don't have to fight that backwards compatibility every year.
That's correct. That's correct. You don't have to upgrade and now go get all your add-ins and all of your wasted time, find their bugs. I don't believe, I believe most firms that I know of say they only upgrade every 2 years. Most people will skip at least 1 year. And if you got your community skipping 1 year, then why the heck are you releasing it? Why don't you just put all of that stuff into a future upgrade? Like I said, my advice to her would be very simple. Make it backwards compatible and stop so many revisions. Because those revisions do get frustrating, right, Nathan? That's why you're not actually drawing, is because of revision or releases, right? Isn't that why you're in that situation?
Yeah.
It's all about the release of that software. I think it's shameful that they continue it, but it's obviously a money-making proposition. And then let's just watch the last 7 minutes, and then we'll boil down. I'll stop it if we need to.
Decisions and the next steps of our product and features.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, here I would just like to share that I did once participate in, or twice perhaps, in these interviews, and it's really fun. It's like they show you a new tool, and then it's like a little test. How would you do something like this? And then just to see how intuitive the tool is. So it's really fun. Yeah, I really enjoy that.
Right. Yeah. Thank you a lot for contribute your ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so is that it in terms of how my audience or how all of the viewers can help contribute in terms of the new updates for Revit?
Actually, if you want to be like very highly involved in our development process, there's also another channel. It's called Revit Preview Program. So in this channel, you can actually test the new features before they are released, and you can provide feedback directly to the development team. And we also have a dedicated forum for you if you join this Revit preview. And here you can give feedback to like early prototypes and ideas of new features. And you can also co-create with the development team to decide on the future of these new enhancements.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think this is really great for people when they feel like Revit should be working a little bit differently according to their needs. Well, now they have this opportunity to actually contribute and have their voice be heard and perhaps make an impact and bring or help contribute, bring another feature. So yeah, this is really interesting.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
I forgot to mention there's one more
please do.
contribution. Yeah, so if you joined whether the Autodesk research community or if you joined the Revit preview, you will also have a chance to participate in a regular bi-weekly session with the development team and review the progress of a new feature. So here you will be able to see the latest progress and provide your feedback directly to the developers face to face. That will be a very close collaboration with our team. And that will require some of your effort and time. We understand that, and we are really appreciate if you can join us in the progress and help us define this product.
Okay, so yeah, that's
Yeah,
really
that's all
interesting.
the channels.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's all the channels you can contribute.
yeah, it's really interesting to have all of these different levels of involvement. I think it's really great, so people can choose depending on their time or their kind of how much they really want to get involved. They can do that, but it's nice to hear that you can actually be in contact with the development team and kind of have your voice be heard in that part of the process. So that's really interesting. Okay, so yeah, that's how Revit is made, and I really like this approach where users have a lot of input. It's just a question of different users having different input. So of course, not everybody is going to be happy all the time, but or with every feature. But hopefully, as more people participate, I guess more people will have kind of that knowledge of how it looks on the other side and how everything is made. Okay, so thank you so much for coming on to the channel. I'm sure that that everybody here will appreciate you kind of giving us a little glimpse behind the curtain and what it looks like to actually create Revit and create all of the tools within Revit. Do you have anything else that you would like to add or you would like to say to our audience?
Yeah, sure. So actually, our team is running a survey, and we are especially interested in the feedback from you users. So because our team is working on wall-related features, we wanted to know your opinion on the existing features about wall modeling in Revit. So this will help us to set up a baseline and help us to measure our progress with the new enhancement.
Sort of neat because Nate, the
Yeah.
big problem that new users have is they don't understand how those walls can really work. Probably that biggest one is the joining of the walls and the construction of curtain walls. Now, it always amazes me, Autodesk, if you even notice that when Revit starts, they always have a building on the splash screen that before it comes up. That amazes me because every building I look at, maybe it's just too many years of doing this. In my head, I'm saying, how would I make that? And that includes right now when I'm looking over her shoulder. You see that face of that building?
Yeah.
How would you make that? Eric, you have any ideas how you'd make that building? I mean, there's not even much facade, but I promise you, the wall tool she's working on,
The vertical, you mean you're talking about the vertical slats that are in it?
I'm talking about even the horizontal eyebrow that's over top of the window. How would you do it?
Yeah.
How would you do it? And that's where the frustration comes in. That's where the new users are going to have her trying to make new tools for that, only because they don't understand there's tools already there to do that. And what happens is the more tools you make, the more tools you got to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the more confusing it gets because there's multiple ways of doing it.
Well, and on top of that, what no one tells you, but I watched it happen to AutoCAD. What was once a snappy, responsive software becomes slower and slower and slower. And I believe if you were to talk to someone who worked for Autodesk many years ago, in about the 2000 to 2005 range, they were petrified because they were trying to make their software work like Revit, and they were building on top of the existing architecture. The sad, real truth that I would tell this lady is don't waste your time. Why don't you make us our next software? Make it based off of Revit if that's what you want to do, but take 5 years and put together a BIM software that has this stuff resolved. There's no reason to try to plaster over what's been done now for 15 years. We're talking 15 years, which is right about when Autodesk was going bad. Because remember, Eric, you couldn't just have AutoCAD. You had to have what? AutoCAD Architecture, which used to be Architectural Desktop, which used to be Designer, which they just kept progressing more and more stuff on top of it. And with every upgrade and every enhancement, it made it so you could do things quicker, but it took more time to do it. It took more time for the software to open. And there's something to be said for a software that's snappy and responsive. And we're leaving that day real quickly when we're talking about Revit. Now, fortunately, when we go over on how to clean up these files and how to clean up those couple issues, you can get it back to being pretty responsive. But the truth is, I think these people are crazy. I think they should really be looking at putting together a new software. And to me, it seems like more benefit would be made not by upgrading the software, but by upgrading the users that are on the software. That's the reason for having this Revit online group.
Doing it Vegas style, where you're not renovating, you're rebuilding.
Correct. I don't think we need to see her last comments. I did see a video though that I wanted to look at.
Well, you know what? Every time you have a crash and it says send information, was any of that ever utilized?
I don't know, but it sure did ask you that a lot, didn't it?
Yeah.
It sure did ask you that a lot. Yeah, see, here we go. 24 minutes. Do we want to watch these new?
What does it say? Awarding new features?
This was the amazing new features for
okay.
2025. Did you open your Revit?
Me? Yeah.
All right. Go ahead and go into Revit for a second.
Okay.
All right. So you're in 2025.2, which means you could actually add the 0.3. There's no reason because you're in the viewer mode. But what I want to know is if you do a file new family, go down to generic model. All right, up in the top left, right next to where the pointer arrow is for modify, there's a little one, a yellow folder on it. You see that button with the yellow folder? That's the categories and parameters. If you click on that, all right, can you stretch that window and make that window bigger? All right, that's great. Same bug all these years later. Here's the bug that I'm saying. You see the bottom window pane?
Yeah.
There's stuff down there that you don't see. If you rolled your wheel, you'd see it. You see all that stuff?
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people don't end up knowing that's there. Now, that gets real complicated when you do pipe fitting. Do the pipe fitting. In the words, yep, pipe fitting. Because now that list is even longer down there. And when you go to where it says part type elbow, go to part type elbow, down on the bottom.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. Don't say sorry. You're good with that. We understand it. Take and hit that arrow. Why doesn't that window? Why do you have to scroll on that window? Why can't you show that whole window?
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of sucks.
Now, if I thought for 1 second, if I requested that they fix that, I would have requested it 12 years ago. Because in 12 years ago, they said that all families were changeable in the size, or all windows were changeable in the size. And there's a lot of windows. Eric, do you remember any of the other windows that we couldn't stretch?
I feel like there was some secondary windows.
I think
Like where if you went into properties or your visual graphics and then you went to another one from there.
Yeah, but I think one of the ones I remember was and this better not be the case. This better not be the case. This better not still be there in 2025. Can you go back to the project? Level one.
Yep.
Draw yourself a wall. All right, now select that wall and then go to the filter. Do you remember where filter is? That's the funnel.
Oh, yeah.
Stretch that window bigger. Uh-huh.
I can't.
You know what? Do what you say you do, and then I'll help you improve your software. That window is supposed to be stretchable. Now, you only have a wall, but I can tell you right now, on all of the files that I was just working in, there was a list much longer than that stretched way down, and I had to scroll. But more importantly than that, there were objects that were in that list that their name was so long that I couldn't read what the name said, and I couldn't stretch the window in width. So that's disappointing.
Yeah, that is a problem.
Very disappointing. That's what I want to sort of do is now I want to watch this real 2025 upgrade. And then to be quite honest with you, I think I'm going to call it a day. I like what we did because I think there's an advantage. Nathan, are you having a hard time getting on the computer, or are you able to burn time on the computer? Because I know that Eric and I have now burned what, Eric? We got 4.5 hours into this. We got 5 hours into this. That was probably 4 hours and 45 minutes more than I was going to spend on the computer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying for next 90 days. If we do together, I think it'll make the difference. That's the part that's really hard when you're just beginning, is how to keep pushing forward. And it might mean that for a little bit, we just watch you draw. You might not even be talking. And for a little bit, we might just watch me draw. But I think if we get together on a regular basis and make this more regular, it's going to benefit all of us.
I agree.
Are you guys in for this, Eric, for 90 days?
I told you I'll do what I can, man. You know my situation, and you know I'm going to be mobile soon. So,
all right. Very disappointing that they didn't fix those 2 bugs. And I apologize. This is the one I want to see. But I want to see this thing.
Fred traded up to commercial auto insurance from Geico.
Hang on, pause this because I want to have him try another one because there's one that I know that doesn't work. The print dialog box doesn't stretch in 2020.
All right. Pushing you back up, Nathan.
Okay. You said print dialog? Control P.
Yep. Oh, you can't print in viewer mode.
That is unfortunate.
Let's see if I have 2020. I think I uninstalled my. Nope, I have it loaded. Let me try it.
You have 2025?
I have it loaded, yeah, and it should still work under the same temporary license.
Because I was having trouble finding like floor plans that way I can just practice. Is there any way that you could probably share a few files that you have, like jobs that you've done?
We're gonna get that ironed out. We're gonna get that ironed out.
Okay.
Because we're gonna get that ironed out, and we're gonna. I'll be honest with you. I may just. How far are you from Charlotte?
I think I'm about an hour from Charlotte. I'm in Statesville.
Depends on time of day.
Yeah, it really does. 77 sucks.
How far
Yeah, I
are you?
can't open it. It's not letting me do trial for 25.
How far are you from 485?
485. Not too sure. Hold on.
Oh, you don't know where the bell? Are you on 70? Statesville's on 77, right?
Yeah, I'm literally right off of exit 50.
50. So that's 40 miles north of Charlotte. Maybe we'll just meet in Charlotte.
Okay.
Maybe we'll just meet in Charlotte, or maybe we'll just fit it in an off time. All right.
Okay.
I wanted to see what this rotating these families thing is.
Horizontal plane is really easy. However, if you want to rotate them on any other plane, well, it's going to be extremely complicated, and usually Revit is just not going to allow that. In this video, I'm going to be showing you a workaround that's going to allow you to rotate or basically orbit your families in any direction you want, so you can get some really unique positionings for your families in Revit. And best of all, it's really easy and quick. Let's go. Now, quickly, before we jump into Revit, I would just like to ask you to check out my website, balkanarchitect.com. I'm going to link it up in the cards above and then also down in the description of this video. If you're serious about learning Revit, that's definitely the best place to be, with over 140 hours dedicated.
Did you see that one? Revit MEP plumbing course. I'd be interested in how much training he sells like that.
140 hours dedicated to all of the interesting and complex topics inside of Revit. Now, without any further ado, let's jump straight into Revit. And here we are in Revit, and this is the project that I'm going to be using. So here we have an example where we have this display for furniture, in this case for chairs, and we want them to be tilted a little bit. However, we obviously cannot tilt these families, so we have to adapt them to become able to be rotated or orbited in all directions. Now, by the way, this workflow has been inspired by NGpedia YouTube channel, so props to them for figuring this out. So anyways, how do we do this? Well, the first step is to go here to File, and then go to New, and then start a new family. For this family, it's really important to pick out the proper template. I'm just going to go back one step and pick out English metric. And then here, you want to search for generic models, and you want to pick out adaptive. Adaptive is going to give you the most flexibility. Then I'm just going to hit open, and that's going to open up this adaptive family interface. And here you want to go to the draw panel and pick out the point element. This point element can be placed anywhere, just like this. Hit the escape key a couple of times, and then you want to select it, and you want to convert it into an adaptive point, just like this. Now we like to center it, so I'm just going to open up the reference level and see. Okay, so it's off to the side a little bit, so let's just use the align tool. AL is the shortcut, just to align this properly, just like that. And then I can even open up the front elevation and just make sure that this is aligned to the level as well. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Hit the escape key a couple of times. So now once we have this point in place, this is going to work as our kind of tool for rotation. Now it's time to bring in the actual family geometry so we can get that from the project here. So for example, in this case, let's say I want to work with this. I can just pick this out, go to Edit Family, and then here I can go to Load into Project. I can even go to Load into Project and Close, which is perfect. And let's pick out this Family 1. Click OK. And do you want to save changes? Nope. And there we go. So now this is loaded into this project, and I can just pick this out and just place it like that. So I want to place it with one of these legs over that point. If I go to the 3D view, let's just see how this is placed. Yeah, perfect. I like the way that this turned out. You can align it even further if you want. I'm just going to keep it like this. I prefer this approach. And then before we move forward and we actually save and load this family, important step is to pick out the correct category. So here, as you can see, this is a generic model. However, this is obviously furniture. So let's just go here to family categories and parameters and search for furniture and just pick that out. So you just want to have this available, click OK. And now, as you can see, it says furniture as a category. Then you want to save it. So I'm just going to save it on desktop as our rotatable chair.
Eric, you ever use any adaptive families?
Not that I recall. I think I might have.
I've stayed away from them, and I'm going to show something after he's done to show what's probably a derivative of this. But this appears to be a really neat solution to how to get that thing to rotate. So we'll keep watching, but that seems to be, this is not what I was expecting.
Click save. And now we can load this into the project. So let's just go here, load into project, and it's here. Now it's going to give you an option to place it on face or work plane. And this basically means that when you come and choose any face, it's going to place that chair there. So we can just place them like this next to each other. And I'm just going to now hit the escape key a couple of times. Now, in order to make further changes.
Eric, do you have Revit open?
I do. 2020. I was able to get 25 open.
That's fine. Do me a favor.
Mhm.
Place a stool like he did, not in an adaptive family, but in a generic face-based family, and see if it won't do that exact same thing that he's trying to do.
And just further
Generic
rotate this
face-based?
chair. So for
Yep.
example, let's say I want this chair to be kind of falling over on the other chair. We can actually do that. So what I can do for this one, for example, is I can first pick out the plane on which we want to apply the rotation. So for example, in this case, let's say I want to just rotate it around. I would simply go here to the architecture tab and then go to the work plane and click on set work plane, and I can just go with pick a plane and pick this face here, just like that. And now when I select the chair and go into rotate, it basically rotates around that point in this particular plane. So you just want to rotate it like this. I can move it a little bit, just like that. Perfect. Next, I want to make it look like it's falling over. So for that, what I can do is I can go again back to architecture, set work plane, and yeah, let's go with pick a plane. Okay, and now let's pick this plane. So this face here, just like that. And now when I select this and go to rotate, as you can see, it's going to rotate like this. So now I can rotate it like that, like it's falling over. Yeah, looks fun. Okay, and then we should be able to move it. Let's see. Okay, so let's hit the escape.
All right, that's about as much as I needed from that. So
Why can't I open my? Oh, there it is. Never mind. I don't have a stool. You're fine with the chair?
yeah, I'm actually going to share. You don't have your screen shared. Let's see. I want to present, stop, present, share screen, entire screen, this one here. All right. So the problem they're talking about, Nathan, is if you went into furniture, which would be under a component.
Yep.
Right? You could find a chair, which you can't find one. So you go to load and then you go into F for furniture. And you have their lane ones. And we go with seating and we go with that'll be fine. This chair, that desk chair. What he's saying, and they do it for a reason, is an elevation. This is that chair. You'll notice that you cannot rotate that chair. It says it cannot rotate it in that position.
That's kind of silly.
Well, let me show you where that is in the actual family. What happens is it says right here, always vertical with a checkbox.
Oh,
But that
Can you just-
doesn't mean you necessarily be able to rotate it, because there's a couple bugs in the Revit families that we're going to get into when we're building those hot water skids and those kinds of objects. But he went through the trouble of putting that in a new family, and he made this. Let me drag this over here so we can see it. He made this a generic model adaptive. For right now, I'm still going to tell you I don't generally like to use those generic model adaptives. They were a special creature that was created. Do you remember when the adaptive families were created, Eric?
No.
I want to say 2012, 2013. People thought they could make furniture out of them, and I don't think you could make them into furniture, but I told you to make yours into a face-based generic model, face-based. So if I push that chair into that family, and I put that chair right there, if we loaded that into the project, and I think you could place it on a work plane, I think the second one you can rotate. Nope. Now,
Does it still have that checkbox or no?
oh, no, a face-based family does not have that checkbox.
Okay.
All right.
Is it because it's space-based that you can't rotate it? It's sitting on that work
Well,
plane?
just bear with me. So if I made one more family, this is one I created as a simpler way to do this, as a generic model, and I just did a revolve. What's the easiest way to do that? I guess the easiest way is probably come up here. We'll make a 1 foot. We'll come down here to 2 foot. We'll draw this shape and put an axis right here on the center. A revolve requires a closed sketch and an axis line. And then what it does is it revolves it around that
Makes it a
axis line.
sphere, yeah.
Right?
I've played with those a little
That's
bit.
fine. That's good. Just watch. Now, if we put that sphere in there and went to the 3D view, and you said create similar,
Yeah,
I can rotate that any way he wants
right. It's because it's face-based, right?
because it's face-based. Okay, so it would be another way. And then the idea is, I'm pretty sure that you can put him in there, and then you could actually delete the original object and he becomes host none. He's got no host. Now, I'm not positive, but I think you can even rotate that then. This is going to be in the plan view. Nope. What you would have to do is, if you wanted to adjust it, you would have to put that second family in there. Family 3. The ball.
That family 3 would act as your pivot point.
Correct.
Could you make that family 3 smaller to just
Absolutely. And that's what, but I'm just trying to say is now, if I wanted to try to figure out what that alignment was, right? So now you just take the ball and you move the ball to where it's leaning on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I can actually do that in a 3D view. I can look at it this way. Then I can look at it from the side, and I make sure that my 2 wheels are tipped, and all of his adaptive family doesn't need to be done. Now, here's why I found that this was a beneficial way to go. Because if I wanted to make a new family, if I made an extrusion, actually, I don't want to do it in that view. I want to do this in my front view. Well, I wanted to create this extrusion. What I ended up finding is if I have, you know, the lights in an OR room, how they've got those two arms that are attached to each other. What I did was I made this parametric, Eric, and then put my chair on the end of it. And what happens is I could then control the angle. So the same thing can be done so that you could actually put a parameter in there so that you could rotate the chair, but it's all based off of the idea that that chair wants to be this face-based guy, right? See, if I load this in my project, my family number 4, which is that crazy guy. And what I do is I go to my 3D view and I put that chair on the end of that arm. Then what happens is I might take this little arm guy and turn its visibility off so he doesn't show up in my project, right? Now, if I go back, so we're going to talk now about the parameters. If I go back to that front view and I edit this guy and I say that I usually like to pin this one down. You notice I'm going to tab over top till I get this little dot, right? That's going to lock that down in that direction. Another way to do that, and I know this is going to be a little advanced for you right now, but I could also do that with the align command, and I can align that dot and lock it, and then align this line and that dot and lock it. Then I would take a dimension right here. And I believe you don't even need to lock that dimension. We'll see when I flex it. But if I then said that this angle here, okay? Now this is the amazing thing, Nathan, and we're going to get deep into this when we start creating our families. But what most people do is they try to parameterize everything, which is my discussions I had with you earlier, Eric, was making parameters on everything is a terrible idea because it makes it impossible for someone like Nate, a beginner who's not used to that, to see all those parameters. You don't know which one you want to change. So the only one that's really important for me to change, and Nate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one dimension, and up here at the top, it's probably a little bit different in your 2025, but there's a spot where we can create that as a parameter, and then we can just say angle. Okay. Now, by doing that, what I've done is I've set this thing up so that I can adjust that angle. Now, this step is called flexing a model. So I want to see if I can flex that down to 25 degrees. You see how that flexed down to 25 degrees? The only thing that didn't stay and Eric, you noticed how it kept the 3.3¼ inches. It keeps that. You don't have to lock that dimension. Okay. So I think if I change this to 1'4", and I'm going to just change this to 3, what we should see is that stuff should all stay the same size, even though I'm rotating the angle. 27. It sure does look like it did. 28. 45. So if you notice, what I've done is I've now made it so that I can rotate that chair around. So if I load this guy in the project, see how he's rotated? That's actually controllable right here. Okay. If I wanted to take that back to 12 degrees, Now he's only barely tipping over. So I want to take him back to 2 degrees. If anyone from Autodesk is still watching, this one here, I think they fixed the bug, but this was just so unfair. If you made this 0 degrees, so it was sitting on the floor, I think we just broke it. Let's see if we did.
No, it went to the plan symbology of the chair, so the legs don't show.
The legs might be below there. The legs might be below there. Let's see if we can rotate it back. See, you see how it allowed me to go to 0 and then come back from it?
Yeah.
That isn't always the case. If I go back to where my chair was actually drawn, let's go to the front view where we can see it. What you're going to find is if I rotate it in here to 0 and then go back to 15 degrees, it had to remove that constraint, because when this line landed on that reference plane, it thought that it had to be 0. So what you would have had to do is you would never really let that come back to 0, okay? So this is just to show you at a high level how tricky these families can become, okay?
Yeah.
So what you had to do is you could not take this to 0. I could take this to 0.001 and then take it back to 30. It might have rounded it. It did round it. Hold on. So I could take it to 0.01. Yes. Which would look like it's in plan view. Then I could take it back to 45. Nope.
Do you think
Depends on what your rounding is set for your angle.
Yep, that's exactly right. You had to do, but you see, it says it's not. So what if I take it to 0.1? Apply. And then to 15. Apply. Yep. This is a bug that drove people nuts, because what would happen is if you would drive this thing and you ever snapped it back to 0, then you would lose that constraint. And it's a bug that I'll be honest, I'll bet it's not resolved in your software. Matter of fact, we're going to set you up to actually test it. So why don't you pull up your Revit?
Okay.
All right. So I need you to make a new family. You can just make a generic model. Okay. What I want you to do is draw those. You're going to do an extrusion.
Okay.
Start right there at those green points.
Mm-hmm.
And now draw that thing up in an angle like I drew. Right?
You did it 1 foot, didn't you?
Anywhere in this fine. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Perfect. That's fine. And then back down to the green and then close it out. Okay, now if you remember, I threw a couple dimensions. So let's go throw a couple dimensions. Right? And I need from there, perfect. That was exactly the one that I picked. And the other two, yep.
Okay. And then you also did
a line.
Angular.
Yep.
Did you go down? You tabbed, right? What did you do here?
Nope. No, that wasn't the one I tabbed on. When I did the angular, I picked that green line and that purple line. And I made that say 20 degrees.
Okay.
All right. This is where I hit escape.
Yep.
And I picked on that 20-degree dimension. And this is where I added a parameter up at the top. At the very far right, there's a little calculator looking thing with a yellow dot on it. Other side, other right. all the way to the end of all those toolbars. Little tiny guy. Keep going over to the right. Right more.
Oh, this guy. I'm sorry. My
That guy
bad.
right there. Yep.
Yep.
And then you would type in angle.
Hit OK.
Yep. And now you could go ahead and finish your sketch. You remember where that is? Yeah, that's it. You got it. Modify, create extrusion tab and finish. Perfect. So now if you go to the project parameters, which was all the way to the left, it's the one with the blue. That's it. You got it right there, family types. And change your angle to 10 degrees. Let's see what happens. This is called flexing a model. And hit apply. All right. So change it to 0 and then see if you can change it back. And apply. Now change it back to 10.
Nope.
So that would be another one for Autodesk to resolve. That would be another one for Autodesk to resolve. Now, for me to walk you through it, it would be very slow. So I'm going to show you the fast way. You could always come back here and try this out on a video, off the video at the tail end of our video, because this is where we're going to wrap up for today. And I'm going to show you how that's done.
Okay.
So you'll pull your screen back up so you're looking at my screen.
All right.
What we have to find is that threshold. When does it become, let's say, 0.5 degrees? See, 0.5 degrees, I can still go back to 45 degrees, right? So let's try 0.2 degrees.
Like I said, Brian, it has to do with the rounding on your decimal function.
Yeah, I get that, but I don't think that's totally it. And to be quite honest with you, tomorrow, I want you to because this should be a good enough challenge for you to try this exact same thing. Imagine if I was making the bucket of an excavator. People make those excavators, and they worry about how to keep the bucket attached to the arm when they want to change the angle of that thing. And that's where I'm saying all I discovered was if you just do a face-based object, then when the arm moves, everything on that face moves. So that's how that's done. All right. So, but what I'm finding is even at the 2 degrees or 0.2 degrees, I'm finding that I'm going to be able to go back. But let's look at that note that it said. See, when I went to the 0.2 degrees, look at this bullshit warning that we're getting. Ready? Watch this bullshit warning. The line in sketch is slightly off axis and may cause inaccuracies. That's because it's saying that it's just slightly off of that one reference plane. So I don't think you can go any further than that, but we're going to try. Let's see if we can go to 0.15 and hit apply. That means it's going to keep it. That means I'm going to be able to change it back to 45. Right? See? So at 0.15, it still held it. You're saying, because we don't get that error when we go to the 0.1, right? When we went to 0.1 and said apply, you could no longer go back to 45. Right?
Yeah.
That was what you were saying. You were saying that if I go to my manage, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying my project units, let me go grab him. He's on the other screen. You're saying because this was only to 2 decimal places. Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I'm thinking, yes.
All right, well, I'm going to take that guy out to custom, and we're going to take him to 0.000. What you got to keep in mind is there's a bug in Revit when it comes to that angle. There's only so much accuracy that you can go to it. I'll call him back. So, where were we? We were back here on the create. and we were on this guy. If I say 0.15 and do an apply, we're going to get that warning. That's what I was expecting. Let's see if I go to a 0.12. Nope, 0.12, it officially broke itself. Now, if I go back, it's not going to allow it. Oh, 0.01. You might be right, buddy. 45. Nope, not 0.01.
So that's where they draw the line.
What about 0.1? That's where they draw the line. So if that's true, if I do 0.11, that's bigger than 0.1. So it's that tenth of a degree. So I should be able to go back to 45, right? So you see, we can only go, we have to go greater than 0.1. And I'm telling you, I think it's just slightly greater than 0.11. That was one too many decimal places. Let's check this. So 0.1001. And you see how I have that many decimal places? So if I put another 0 in there, it's holding that number, but I'm telling you, it's not going to allow it to move now. This time it's not going to allow it to. Oh, it did. So that was.
It's kind of weird how specific this is.
It's extremely weird. It's an extremely weird bug. But when you realize that it's controllable, see, that makes, see, before it didn't say that it was slightly off sketch.
Did you have another 0 in there?
No, nope, because it would have read. And it's rotating it now. So the gist of where I was going with all this is we have to put a formula in. Okay, what we have to do is we have to make a new parameter. And I usually call this one calculated angle. Okay, and it's going to be an angle. Right? Now, what we do is this is the number that we're going to actually put in. And we're going to say, so if we put in 45 here, we want this one to say, I'm going to take this word calculated angle, and we're going to begin to write a formula. Okay? This will be a lot of fun for you to start to play with some of these formulas and making things a little bit more highly parametric. But this is one that's called an error detection. What do I call it? They had a good name for it. A bug trap, I think, is what they called it. So we know that we can't let that angle get below 0.1002. But what we could say is, we could say this angle is whatever Brian types in for calculated angle. So if I do that, I just simply say Control V. Now, whatever Brian types in here, if he types in 0.1001, right? You see that number automatically changed? And what I typically do is I take this guy and I change his properties a little bit, and I put him into a different group, into other. And what my idea is is a person changes the things that are in dimensions, but this is the thing you don't change. So what we want to do, you see how that 45, it automatically changed this one to 45? What we can say is if bracket. And what we can say is if the calculated angle is less than the number that's dangerous to us, 0.1001, then we put a comma and we tell it what we want it to do if that's the truth. And if that's the truth, I want the number to be 0.1001. And if that number's false, I want it to be the calculated angle. Okay? So watch what happens. If I type in 45, if I type in 30, see how the grayed out one goes to 30? If I type in 0, you see what it did? It said, don't make it 0, make it 0.1001, which allows me to keep rotating it.
Yeah.
All right. See, so now if I load this back into my project, you're going to see, and just like Eric said, if you noticed a second ago, it was showing the plan detail, which you don't understand, but you were exactly right, Eric. It's now showing the 3D objects because it's slightly off a plane.
Yep.
But it would allow you to be able to go
to 0 in here, but not in the
Correct.
family.
Correct.
So they have fixed it.
Oh, you can't go to 90 either. You can only go to 89. No, yeah, 89. Nope. You know what it did? You know what it did, son of a bitch. You were right about that second decimal place. 45.
Oh, you don't have your rounding set up in the drawing view.
That's correct. That's correct. So that would mean that we have a different way to be able to make that thing rotate around. And that is an actual controllable way where you could say, now because where this comes into play is our problem that we have with valves. The valves, remember when we rotate those with that control point rotate, then the valve symbol's incorrect.
Yes.
You remember what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is we have to have those valves so that we can adjust the angle. And you see, it's not that hard to actually take this guy, come in here. This can be a little bit frustrating, but what we've got to do is we've got to take this guy and change him to an instance. And then we take this guy and change him into an instance. And I had to do that in that order. If I didn't do it in that order, it would have given me an error. But now what happens, Nathan, is you'll see that when I'm looking at that chair, this is the difference between a type parameter and an instance parameter. Now watch what it does. When I pick on that chair, right here's the angle. So I can make this one 15 degrees. See, so now what happens is I could go copy, copy, copy. See how I can set each one of these. I can make this be minus 15. I can make this guy be 45. See, it allows me to set each instance to be different. If it's a type parameter, all of those, when I changed one, all four of them would have changed to be the same. You understand the difference between instance?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It kind of isolates what you're placing down, lets you make changes to just one instead of
Those look
all of
like
them.
they're stopping at 0, don't they?
Well, you sure they are? Because
'Cause of
I
your-
said if the angle is less than,
Gotcha.
so I'd have to refine my formula a little bit. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's another
So I
way.
didn't mean to cut you off, Nate.
No, you're okay.
It's another way to be able to rotate those chairs. Don't get me wrong. I still will take that information that Balkan was showing, and I'll end up using that.
No,
Nathan,
yeah.
I'm sorry. What's your preferred name?
You can call me Nathan, Nate. It don't matter. Whatever
Okay.
you prefer. I don't mind it.
My stepson was Nate, and my daughter's boyfriend is Nathaniel, and so I've always done the variation. So I apologize when I call you something off of that.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
you now have to answer to Nathaniel too, because I've noticed he's called you that a couple times.
It's okay. I'll know he's talking to me.
Well, let's wrap with this last 20 minutes. I think it was 20 minutes. How long did that say? Best new features. Let's see what the best new features are.
Quick question before we hop into this.
Go for it.
In order to change which axis that chair would rotate on, so like if you wanted to, instead of tilt it on its side, tilt it on its front, would you just
Yeah.
have to rotate it on the extrusion itself?
That first extrusion, I would probably be drawing that in the left-hand view instead of the front view.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you.
But by all means, we wanna play with that a little bit. We're probably gonna how were you in science class and physics and stuff like that? Math.
Science was my best subject. Math was my second.
All right, so you were pretty strong in those classes.
Yeah.
See, that's what I love the most about doing this kind of stuff is you can actually use some of that stuff that you learned in math and physics and whatnot
Uh-huh.
and see it in real life happen. And that's going to be how we play with how that thing orbits. And I do want to go back and revisit that. I just wanted to show you this is an alternate way to rotate that chair around.
Yeah, I got
Does
you.
that make sense? I wanted to also expose you to the ideas of how we can make those things parametric. When we add a parameter, that makes that family parametric. Don't
Yeah.
fall into the mistake that I fell into and everyone else that I've noticed has fallen into is when you start getting good at parameters, you start making so many of them that Nate can no longer use the families because they're too sophisticated for him. Does that make sense to you? What I mean by that? In other words, you can quickly make your family so sophisticated that no one else can use it. And if you don't believe me, trust me, you will when I show you some of the families that have all these parameters written into them. And you're like, all I want to do is change the size of it. And I can't change the size of it. And that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, they get too many details on them that someone like me can't, navigate.
Well, and that's sort of why, if you think about what Autodesk, it's actually a good part of that video that we watched is she doesn't want the questions from the expert users because, to be honest with you, she has a hard time answering the ones from the expert user. She wants the ones from the beginner level users. We have to refine that flow. We have to figure out how to get someone from that beginner level and to give them that capabilities. And I've got some ideas for that as well. Okay. And my thinking is if we do this correctly and you help me with this, we can make some libraries that a lot of people can use. What I don't want to make is a library like Eric and I were looking at that kitchen stuff that I'll be honest, the one that Balkan was doing, I don't think you could get 10% of the users to be able to use that plugin that he was doing because it's that sophisticated. I want to do something, a library, an object that helps a lot of people instead of a very specialized one that only helps a couple people on the face of the earth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Let's see what 2025 has to offer us.
Has just been released, and in this video we're going to be covering all of the interesting and exciting new features. Now, unlike last year, we don't have any new big tools or features. However, there have been some big updates to all of the existing features that I'm excited to share. We're going to start with my top 5 new features, then we're going to be moving on to the architecture features, then the TopoSolid updates, and there are many. Then we're going to be moving to other topics like documentation, annotation, structure, and so on. Finally, there will be an honorable mentions section where I'm just going to mention some updates without going into a step-by-step tutorial. Let's go.
Most of number 3, TopoSolids, was fixing what they added, like I said, that they broke a lot with when they went from TopoSurface to TopoSolid. I'm guessing because I haven't seen this yet.
For my top 5 new features, I have to start off with disable and enable wall and wrappings by instance in Canvas. This will greatly improve detailing. Moving on to second place is sheet collection, so for better sheet organization. Then we have the array tool update, so families will be able to flex to one.
What he's about to say. Allowing that array to flex to 1 is very similar to what I just showed you. In other words, because we're going to be working in 2020, we won't have this function. So we're going to have to find a bug trap or an error trap to keep this from happening. But in 2025, they finally fixed it. And
1 or 0 elements, and I've been waiting for this feature forever. Then we have the excavate tool in TopoSolids. Basically, building pads are back, sort of. And then finally, we have annotation alignment. This will be a huge time saver. Now, before we jump into Revit and start this step-by-step tutorial, I would just like to ask you to check out my website, balkanarchitect.com. I'm going to link it up in the cards above and then also down in the description of this video. If you're serious about learning Revit, that's definitely the best place to be. And I'm excited to announce that there will be a completely new...
If you look right here, there's a complete house in Revit course.
Yeah.
Which maybe we'll just invest in. I'd like to see how this is actually done. I've never done any of these, so maybe that's something we'll let you test out. I'll give you my card and you can just set up to test it, see how it works. We can watch them together even. All right.
Beginner to intermediate course released very soon. If you get it now, you will get the update, and if you already have it, you will get the update for free, so don't worry about that. And if you get the beginner course now, you will get it at a cheaper price because the new updated one will cost a bit more. So if you want to lock in the lower price, get it now. So now, without any further ado, let's jump straight into the new Revit 2025. The first architectural update that we're going to be seeing is the option to enable or disable layer wrapping at ends of walls in the actual canvas. So here we have a couple of walls in the floor plan view. If I select this wall, what you'll notice is that here I have this button that allows me to disallow wall end wrapping. And as you can see, now it's turned off. Now it's turned on, and we can do that for the rest of these. So here I can turn it on, here I can turn it off, and I can manually adjust this by instance for any of these walls. One thing to note is that for this to be able to work, you do need to go here into edit type, and then for the layer wrapping at ends, it has to be set to either exterior.
I'm your football obsessed best man. When all eyes are on you, my eyes are glued to the game.
Exterior or interior. Otherwise, if it's set to none, it will not display that option. And here, where that's checked on, it does display that option. So this is just something to keep in mind. Next, we have features for auto join and lock when creating walls. So here, if I start the wall command, what you'll notice is that under placement, we have auto join and lock. So what this actually means is that we can use this when using new walls to add layers to existing ones. This is a common practice, and here I have this ceramic tile wall, which I want to use to add.
Eric, that last command and this command, what's the value to you in your 15 years?
The wall cleanup?
The end condition toggle, and this
Brian,
one here is the auto join.
I have to apologize. I was just texted something that's agitating me, so I was a little dis out of it.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
I
don't think there's these all. I'll be honest. I now remember watching this, and I did go through this. And what we're gonna find is that auto join. That's a pretty neat command if you're gonna try to draw your crown molding with curtain walls over top, and you get walls that join to each other. There's a little bit of benefit to it. You used to be able to just turn the join off. I see some value in it. That last one, turning off and it on the end wrap conditions, by that time you're working in some kind of detail mode where you got to draw in the studs and the insulation and the rest of the stuff. I don't see why people are struggling with that. I think that's a terrible mistake that people are making. Let's see. Well, I'll watch it a little.
Additional layers to existing walls.
I'm wrapping up,
and
Brian.
here,
I'll
if
talk
I
to you
do
later.
it without having any.
Are you out of here?
Yeah, I gotta. Yeah.
All right. Do you think you want to do this tomorrow?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll call you in a little bit.
All right, that'll be fine.
Later.
Any of these checked on. Let's see what happens. So I'm just going to place it like this, hit the escape key, and what you'll notice is basically these are not joined together. It's going through the door. It shouldn't, and we have these double wide lines. However, if I decide to use auto join, what this will do is if I place this here, and then hit the escape key. As you can see, this automatically joined this new wall to the existing one. It's now opening where the opening should be, and we no longer have these double thick lines. So as you can see here, we have one thick outline, and here we have two. And then we have the auto join and lock, and let's use that here. So for example, if I add another wall here, what will happen is it will automatically be joined, as you can see, but also if I select it, you can see this one is locked in place. This one isn't, or these two aren't. So if I move this wall, these will stay in the same place. If I move this wall, the new wall that I've added will move alongside it. Now let's talk about curtain wall mullions. So far in Revit, you could only have one single closed loop as a curtain wall mullion. This is what that would look like in the floor plan view, and it just wouldn't be that impressive. You could add a detail component, but that's only a detail. It's not really a 3D complex mullion. Well, now we can have multiple closed loops. So I've created this interesting mullion. I've loaded it in, and now let's try to apply it. So what I'm going to do.
Do you know what he drew that in that previous picture he showed? That was a profile. You with me, Nate?
Can you go back just to let me see it?
Sure. Where was it at?
I think it was a little bit further than that. Go
mullions. So far in Revit, you
Right
could
here.
only have
What he
one
didn't
single
tell you is
closed
what
loop
this was.
as a curtain wall mullion. This is what that would look like in the floor plan view, and it just wouldn't be that impressive. You could add a detail component, but that's only a detail. It's not really a 3D complex mullion. Well, now we can have multiple.
All right. So what he didn't tell you is this thing here is a profile. So can you pull up your Revit?
Yeah, let me present real quick. Okay.
All right. Draw yourself a wall and use that storefront curtain wall.
Properties.
Yeah. Storefront.
Yep. Gotcha.
And go to a 3D view. You're getting good. You're getting good. So if you zoom real close into the corner of one of those things, what he's saying is those mullions, that mullion, right? Now you can't do anything with that mullion because it's probably pinned. Okay. So you would need to unpin it.
Could I just come up here and?
Yep. You can unpin it like that. Now over in the properties, there's that edit type.
Yeah.
Down right there. Yep. Now do a duplicate just so you make another one.
Yeah.
That's fine. You just leave it unnamed. Do you see where under the word construction it says the profile, and you've got that as a system mullion profile?
Yeah.
You could pick another profile and like do that C shape. Just do that C shape. See, that would then allow you to hit OK. And there would be a C shape there. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Turn your view to shaded. You can see it a little bit better, probably.
Yeah, I see it in there. Is it only on that one side?
It's only got one side. It's the C channel.
You can see it better right here.
You can see it better there. But the moral is, if you go back and look at your screen, you'll notice that what he's now able to do is he's able to draw that not as one shape. It used to be that profiles could only be one shape. Now it looks like they can be multiple shapes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I actually have a curiosity, and we're probably going to wrap up with this. And then what I want you to do is play a little bit, go to Balkan and watch a little bit. See if you can find a good video for us to review. One that maybe's got some questions, or one that you just thought was cool, or watch some of my videos.
Yeah.
Play tomorrow by ear. I'm guessing you slept in a little bit today.
I did.
Okay. What are you staying up at night playing?
I'm
Staying up at night goofing off.
No, I'm mainly watching videos. I stayed up pretty late last night looking for floor plans, honestly.
Good. That's what my question is. I'm trying to find out, are you staying up being excited about what we're doing, or are you staying up playing video games and doing nothing related to what we're doing? And that was the right answer. So that was a good answer. So let me share my screen. That's going to take me a second. You keep talking.
Okay. I do have like I said before, hopefully before we wrap this up, if you could possibly share just PDF files of maybe floor plans that you've done in the past. That way I can just have an outline as to what to practice with, because everything that I found online, it doesn't really have good, either dimensions or like views that I can take reference off of.
I got an idea. That doesn't require you getting a file.
Okay.
I got an idea. So what I wanted to test was architectural wall. I usually like this as that. And then I'm going to do an architectural wall sweep. Then I'm going to go in and say, file, give me actually, let me close all the stuff I don't need. All right. I'm going to make a new family, right? This is how you would be making that mullion thing that he was drawing, would be a new family. It'd be a special type of family. A lot of these, they're just duplicates of each other. So like a generic model is exactly like a furniture. It's just a different category. It's exactly like a lighting fixture. None of those are like a profile. A profile, when I open it up, I don't have the extrude commands. All I have the ability to do is draw some lines.
Okay.
He had was something, I don't know, something like
It almost seemed like he
he had something like this,
Yeah.
right? And then what he did was he offset all of that by a 1/4 inch, right? And then I clicked once in white space so that I could come here and hit tab and go like that. So I'd get something like that. Then he had some crazy little lines in there, but we're not going to do all that. We're going to do something more like this and draw one more line, create line. Because I'm just trying to test. My question that I have is, could you do the multiple profiles shapes on other objects and just not on a curtain wall? See, so here, if I go to edit type, doesn't matter. I'm going to duplicate it. Normally, and the naming of it, the cornice too. What I do is when I'm getting something working, and I'm like, okay, this now works. That's when I go back and then I would come back and rename this guy from cornice 2. In other words, when I'm testing it, I don't waste my time. What I'm trying to find out is this family number 5 worked. And it did. Okay. So you see how it did that extrusion. Now, what must have happened was it used to be that if you drew that storefront, you went in and you picked this 1 million. I see it, my non-pinned objects. There it was. This guy here, remove the pin, edit, duplicate. That's what they fixed. That makes sense to you?
Yeah.
So it's not that you didn't used to be able to make that profile. It's that you couldn't use it in a curtain wall grid. Which is, I mean, it's good that they fixed it. It should have been fixed a long time ago. I just didn't know if a profile could always be a multi-shape profile, which then gets me believing, how about if I draw a roof, right? We're all on defined slope, so we can go like this and this. It would then make me question is, if I put a roof fascia on there, could I edit that roof fascia and put the profile on the fascia? Oh, not material. This guy. Family 5. So it's like it always worked, but was broken for the curtain walls, and they finally fixed it after all these years. So it is a good thing. It is a good thing that they added. But I also wanted to hammer home the profile with you. So what you want is a floor plan.
Yeah, something to practice on.
Well, I'm going to give you what was my favorite assignment. Did you live in pretty much the same house most of your childhood?
Yeah.
Draw it for me.
Draw my house.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, goodness. That's the answer I like to have. Right? So, my original house was part of a townhouse. That was where I lived when I was a child. So, what kind of house do you live in? The brick house or siding house?
Well, growing up, it was a siding, but yeah, siding for mostly all of it.
Was it a square house?
When I was first living in South Carolina, I lived in a condo, and it was
Nope, don't do the condo one. Oh,
yeah.
I want your dad's house that you just recently been living in. And what I want you to do is very similar to what I was trying to do was say, I lived in a townhouse. So this was the front of my townhouse, and this is the back of my townhouse. Now, when I draw that, I'm really trying to notice, and I don't really exactly know, but I'm going to say I had a stair in it and a 14-foot room. It was probably about 35 feet. Okay. So then my house would have been everything that was in between there. And if I think back, it was basically a living room. You came in, and there was a little bit of a wall. And then there was a wall like this. And then there was a door like this. This would actually need to be a little bit bigger because there was a wall that went up this way and then to here. And then, to be honest with you, if I remember, this was 30 years ago, there was a closet down here with a bifold door. So then I had an architectural door right here. This was the exterior door. This was my kitchen area. This was the kitchen area that we had, and a dining room table. So that leads me to believe this was probably a little bit wider. See how I'm just clicking and dragging, trying to get that feel?
Yeah.
Right? Because this is really how you want to draw in Revit, because you want to be able to draw what a person's laying out for you, and not necessarily do that cropping of an image or snipping of an image and bringing it in and tracing over. Sometimes you'll snip over. But then the next thing that we had a stair that went from here all the way up. Now, the reason I would need a stair that long is because in my file, I wasn't realistic about my second floor. My second floor is way up there, where the second floor back then was probably about 10 foot. So now when I go back to that level 1, you'll see drawing that stair becomes a heck of a lot easier. But you wouldn't have messed yours up because I did that earlier whenever I was trying to play with a section mark. So if I try to draw that stair now, that was how the stair went. And then you see what I do is I take that stair and move him into place. Finish. This thing was probably more like over there. Then I might actually say all of this. What I'm just doing is I'm just playing with my floor plan, trying to get my floor plan in there. This was our living room. So this is where we need a couple room separators. And we throw a couple rooms in there. And then I would put a sliding glass door out onto my back patio. And then I'd need to make my second floor, which was basically a 2-bedroom townhouse. And that's where we lived. And then I would try to develop this a little bit more. I'd put in my closet rod and shelf and a bifold door, my sliding door. See, what I'm saying is if you go back, and it doesn't have to be a house you lived in. It could be a house you're in right now, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
The apartment you're in right now has enough information that it should probably take you about 4 hours to draw. You're living in an apartment, right?
Yeah.
1 bedroom or 2 bedroom?
1 bedroom.
You should have that drawn for tomorrow.
Okay.
Try to get the kitchen. Try to get the windows.
Do you want me to get all the like dimensions perfect or?
No, I don't think you have to have anything perfect. I want you to push it as far as you want to push it right now. But understand that when we're making a set of floor plans, we do want to make everything exact. We want to make things logical. Like
Yeah.
we would definitely not have. So as I would start to do this stuff, and this is where I warned you, you don't want to grab the stair, you want to grab the wall,
Yeah.
right? So I could easily say, I got a problem here. That's not how big my hallway was. It wasn't a 6-foot hallway in a townhouse. So notice how I happen to know how to select that stuff, but there's this button up here that says activate dimension. So I could say I knew that hallway was 3 foot wide, which meant that now I have to do a little bit of work down here to get my 3-foot door in there. And then my closet was probably only that big at the bottom of that stair. You with me? And I
Yeah.
might end up picking this, and notice I'm just going to go edit witness line and come and I can continue to dimension, and I can say, yeah, I don't think we had a 12-foot wide there. I think that was probably more like 8 foot. And that is probably more precise to what the size of our townhouse was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you.
What you want is a floor plan. So let's see.
I just wanted something that I can take and see, what I saw in your videos making that almost heaven
Yep.
building. I didn't really have anything to go off of. Because I couldn't reach into the video and grab your PDFs.
You should have been able to grab it right off that image.
Oh, yeah.
So in other
Yeah,
words,
I
as
guess I
that
could have
video was playing,
Yeah, no, you're right. I could have used the snipping tool, huh?
you could have used the snipping. That was what I wanted you to do.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Dang.
Well, that's the listen. Don't feel bad. That's so you started looking for a set of blueprints. I'm seeing a set of blueprints right here.
Now, where did you go for that?
I just went and I put in set of blueprints. And right here's another one. And it's pretty interesting because when I went to that, this tells you what's included in a plan set. These are people that actually have these drawings done, and you can buy them from them.
Yeah.
And it tells you that their set of drawings includes elevations, a foundation plan, a floor plan, building sections, a roof plan, and then notes and details. And that's basically what you need for a set of blueprints. Now, how does this about our plans? Trying to see somewhere. Somewhere they probably have. There you go. And I'll bet you any one of these houses, if you go to that, it's going to show you the house, the plan, the upper plan. And what they're not giving you is those elevations. They're not giving you those sections. So you see, if you came here and you said, let me go back to that one. Control C. Let me do one more thing. Let me go. Didn't I have it open? Yeah, there it is. There. Make a new email and say, Nate, Nathan plans. There you go. I just emailed you what will get you to this sheet right here.
Okay.
What I'm saying I want you to do is take something like this, right? So I would capture that image. I'd capture that image. And if you look, you can actually see that that's all rendered. That's all modeled.
Yeah, it's not real.
It's not real. But you would have those two images to see what they're like. And right here's the floor plan and the upper floor plan.
Now, can you show me how I would scale those floor plans in Revit real quick? Like, I know it's much easier if they have the dimensions already out and lined. That way I can
Yeah,
just click and click, but
I would probably go in for my biggest room.
yeah.
Like this great room says it's 16'0" by 14'8". And I would snap from here to here and make sure that that's 16'0".
Okay, so from inside to inside?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I was wondering if it was,
If
midpoint
it's
to
off by a
midpoint.
little bit, you were wondering what?
I was just wondering if it was the interior face, like from the inside of the walls or to the
Well,
middle.
I don't think you would be getting it that exact. In other words, I think you might find that if you made this 16 foot across here, that you would then find that this is 16 foot across here. Normally, when the numbers yielded like that, that's telling me the actual space that I have in that room. So that's telling you from inside face to inside face.
Okay.
But there should be no reason that you couldn't draw any one of these guys up. There's for days. Look, I even saw something down here that said barn dominiums. Apply that filter. There's some that are made out of barns, out of those pole barns. See that big rectangle? That's what they're calling that. Because that is a pretty big garage. You can see it's a lot of garage area.
Yeah.
And it's basically got a house attached to it. Pretty interesting. When they flip that, it flips the text as well. And you could go into enlarge and take your snippet from that page right there.
Yeah, that would make it more clear.
But you can see you're going to have the same, and that's where, I tried to warn you that residential is going to take a lot of work because you're going to have that same kitchen. You're going to have the bathrooms. You're going to have so much stuff. But you need to be able to draw that house in a day. That's plans, elevations, and a foundation plan. That's where your skill level needs to get to. Now, to be honest with you, where Eric and I spent about an hour, probably about 2 hours today, was in going through all these jobs, trying to see what kind of work was out there and what kind of money was involved. There was a couple of jobs that I would definitely say you will be prepared to apply for by the time we're done. Okay. But my thought process was trying to get with Eric and trying to see what kind of jobs are out there. I will tell you, it still appears that there's plenty of need for Revit users. So I don't think you're like learning how to build a car and all the cars are going to China to be fabricated. This is not the case.
Okay.
There is work out there.
That's
If
good to know.
you stay diligent at this for the 90 days that we proposed, you will be prepared to have a job like that. And my hope was to be able to say, okay, well, there's a lot of wastewater jobs. So let's figure out how we do wastewater plants. Ironically, that's where my wife just took her job with. The second highest one, or probably the highest I saw, was electrical. The second, the highest one that I saw was the wastewater treatment plants. And then it was sort of a mix between architecture and engineering. And that's where we are going to have that discussion. What do you want to lean towards? Do you want to be more in engineering, or do you really want to learn all the building phases, all the parts of the building like I told you? So here's a drafter. Let's see what this one says. Drafter in North Carolina. Review and update drawings by checking drawings for errors and updating them. Develop and maintain a library of CAD blocks. This is probably someone doing something very similar to what we were looking at here. Does that make sense? Making these plan books.
Yeah.
Wonder how much this thing costs. Add to plan cart. So, if you can draw that house in a day, you can see what they're charging.
Yeah, that's pretty good money.
Yeah, I would imagine most people would want to favor, if you start drawing houses, you'd probably get more like $1,500 to draw it. That's why you have to be able to draw it in a day.
Yeah.
Because they're going to come back at least 3 times to make changes to it. But that's the beauty of this, is they give you the full set of drawings. They would email you that full set of drawings. You could submit that for permitting, and then you would just have to build what they drew. Pretty neat. Look at these ones. Look at this fella here. That might be a fun one to build.
Now I got a question. Is there any way, like, and I will, go to this website and try and build all these myself, but is there any way we could probably get into a call and maybe walk through, or like have you watch me build one of these, and just if I have any questions?
I'll tell you what, text me tomorrow when you wake up. You'll go to this tonight, try to pick out the house, and I'll help you get that prepped and set ready to go.
Okay.
I can do that. I can do that.
That way, like, everything that I've already watched you do in the videos you've given me.
Yep.
I haven't been able to apply them yet to an actual building and like finish it,
Well, and you're not going to be able to until you come down here and grab this.
Yeah, yeah.
But it wouldn't be a bad idea if tomorrow when you wake up and you get going, shoot me a text and we'll jump on, and you'll have one of these guys here, and I'm going to want you to snip all these images. I'll show you how to put them in there and get you set up so that you can trace. And then you can spend a day tracing, and then we can get together this weekend when the traffic's a little bit more reasonable on the interstate.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe I can even drive up that way. Like I said, maybe I'll take my wife out, maybe take her uptown for something to eat, and hell, maybe we can all eat together. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I don't want to see you drive all the way here just for that. But it's not out of the question either. That's a pretty neat one. You go find yourself a neat house.
Okay. Do you want me to try and like build it, or just wait?
If you can't figure out how to get it, I will walk you through those steps, and I'm sure other people would be very interested in seeing that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, that sounds good.
But see, I can look at that and I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly how I'd build those walls, put these joints in. This is all curtain wall, curtain wall, curtain wall. I can have that thing done so quickly. Let's see what the back looks like. Absolutely. Absolutely. I could draw that. And as far as I'm concerned, we can use that for motivation, you know?
Yeah. Honestly, we could just use these as motivation. These could be our, you know, building blocks technically for how we
Yes.
want to.
Just remember, I don't really want to get into the architectural market.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
The architectural markets are the residential houses that you can see how most people are doing residential. And this is pretty neat. So you could say, what do you got for 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, 2 floors, and 3-car garage? Search the plans. And there's all the houses that they've got. I wonder if they charge more for these bigger houses. I bet they do. How much do they charge for that set of plans? $2,502. They do charge a little bit more. But I can tell you right now, that roof would be a major bugger to build.
And that little arch in the doorway right there.
Yeah, that would be a challenge. I think your bigger challenge would be the roof. And you see these tapered columns, and it actually looks like there's some tapered walls on this thing.
Yeah, those
That's
columns,
all.
I've built those already, kind of.
Well, cool, cool.
Yeah, while I was messing around with the extrusions, I was able to somewhat build a shape like that. But yeah, it would definitely be difficult because I don't know how to turn that into a different type of material and actually make it the type
The
I need.
stone pattern, and yep. Well,
Yeah.
that's where I can't teach you all of those things. I need some of that to come to me as questions, and that's where you've got to get better and better at your skills. You got to spend some time. And I can tell you that roof right there is a bugger. That is a challenging one.
Yeah, it's got different overhangs and
I can imagine you would spend at least 8 hours trying to build that roof. And that's where you end up with the problems, because 2,500, I would bet when you were done, even if you were to get $3,000, because that's what's happened to me is people have brought me this stuff, given me these floor plans, and they say, but Brian, I want a 4-car garage, and I don't want my dining room here. I want my dining room on this side, and I want when they start making changes to this, because believe me, they would not be able to do this for $2,500 if you had to redesign it. They're talking about $2,500 for what they've already designed. Does that make sense?
yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's a good website to go to. You can see that was just the first one. I
Yeah.
would bet they're all sort of like that.
Well, see, I've done this. So I went to, the images and I tried clicking on the websites and I found a few, but they always had very poorly rendered images and everything that I saw, it was just not. It wasn't anything I can take a screenshot of and just slap it in.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's the ability to take that screenshot, using a couple tricks to do that screenshot. So by all means, you try and struggle, and then I'll show you. But these are definitely, this is definitely good for you to look at. You see how this set of drawings gets a cover sheet like we talked about, and then it gets wall sections, typical notes, foundation, and a detailed floor plan. Now you can see they're not obeying the AIA standards, because they're, like I told you, the floor plans typically go up front. These guys, they put their sections up front. Right after the index, they put their sections, and then they put their typical details.
Mhm.
Then they put their foundation, then they put their floor plan. And if you would notice,
They have schedules in there.
a window schedule and a door schedule. Those are the two that I told you about. And you know how I'm scrolling that. See, that's what I would be saying. So you should be able to trace off of that. It's hard to read the words, but you can make them out. I can see nook, master suite, veranda, great room. Can you read that stuff?
Yeah.
Not easily, right?
Yeah. My only problem would be the measurements, but
Well, the measurements, what you sort of do is you know this is probably a 6-foot door. You don't have to get the measurements dead on. You would have some deviation from what you're working from. Usually, if they have a graphic scale, is the easiest way to get that. Yep, they don't really give you any good dimensions. They don't want to give you any good dimensions. That roof would be a bugger to build as well. Now, did they have... There you go. Search our plans. There you go. They seem to all be doing that. For $1,300, you can buy that set of plans and see what does it show you when you go to that. So that gives you picture, plan, and they even give you some interior pictures. Oh, and they give you the elevations as well. See, so if that was if I was trying to snip that, what I do is I'm going to hold my control on the web page, and I'm going to scroll, so that's as big as I can get it, so I can capture that picture, then that picture, then that picture, and I would name them left elevation, whatever they named them, I would name them. Then I would come back here and get my floor plan. And by all means, yeah, control. And if you've got a big monitor, you can get that surprisingly big and surprisingly enough that you can read it. And
yeah.
as we said, it's probably 12 foot this direction and 11 foot in that direction. Then you go check this room and make sure it's 12 foot by 12 foot. Once you've verified a few things, you're in like Flynn. You should be able to trace it. That's a pretty hard way to make a living, $1,300 for a complicated plan like that. Wonder what they charge for for a CAD is $2,000. That's because they're worried about you making changes to it.
Yeah, and then posting it and selling it or whatever.
Yep. Look at that. That's pretty cool. They even put a 3D tour on there. That's pretty cool.
Can you do this with Revit?
That's where you would push it into twin motion to be able to do this part. Yep.
Oh, okay.
That's why I want you to do twin motion, but you didn't know anything about twin motion, so that's a hard way to go. Look at this guy. Holy macarenas. Once you... No, that was something different.
That one to the right of it looks kind of crazy.
Yeah, these are more articles. These are blog posts. These
I
are
got
their actual house plans.
I got you.
And I think if you go back even further, shop all plans. See, they got the same kind of thing. So that one they probably got the plans for. See, there's the exterior. There's a plan. There's a plan. And then they've got multiple exterior views. Interior views. Yep. That's why that casework stuff is there. I'm going to leave this up to show Eric. Good gracious, look at that ceiling. That would be a bugger to build. Do they have elevations at the end? Yep, there they are. Ooh, $8,000 for the damn CAD drawings. And what was it? 5,000 square feet? Oh, buddy. Pretty cool.
Now I got a question. Could you draw that in a day?
Have to be about an 18-hour day, but I could have it ready for you tomorrow. Yeah, I could have that ready tomorrow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, see, when you click on, and this one, when you click on that image, it gives you a big full view so that you can do your capturing.
Yeah.
I don't want you to undertake something that big. What I want you to do is I want you to get at least a little bit of a house so that we can put it on sheets so that you can make that set of drawings, which if you go back to where they talked about what's in the set of plans, that's what you need to be able to create. And that's just architecturally. Remember, we then got to try to think about mechanical and duct or mechanical and plumbing, which I promise you, they don't have any of that stuff. They don't have any mechanical or any plumbing. They don't probably even have structural.
Yeah.
Look at this one here with the damn round turret, a round turret and an octagonal turret. Holy smokes.
Now, whenever I pick out one of these buildings, can we go through like the foundation as well? Because I haven't done any of the foundation. I don't really know how to set that and then build up from there.
Yep, we can do that. We can teach you how to do that. You'd have to decide what kind of foundation was it going to have. Is it going to be a slab on grade? Is it going to be a crawl space? You have to answer a couple questions, and then we build it that way.
Yeah, okay.
And that would really be specific. Generally, those foundations would be specific to where you're going to build it. If you're going to build it in a real sandy place as opposed to a place that's in the mountains that's got rock and, depending on what you're dealing with. Don't get overwhelmed. Pick a reasonable size house out. See if you can capture those images. And then once you have, then you're going to get cut loose for about a week and try to draw it.
Okay.
And then we'll that's where the idea comes in that I'll assist you maybe an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, or maybe 1 hour at the end of the day, however much help you need to get you through that step. And then we're going to get right out of architecture and start going into the system tab and getting into ductwork and the rest of the stuff.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
If staying up works for you, do that. That's why I didn't bother you in the morning. That's why I just sent that email out. I was going to text you when we got on, and I'm like, I need to find out if Nathan's staying up at night trying to do things productive or if you're not doing anything. If you're doing stuff and you stay up late, that's not bad. That's a good way to get this knocked out. Okay, like I said, our classes can take place in the evening just as easily.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I got you.
Questions, ideas?
No. Starting out like today, would you want me to just draw my house that I lived in, or do you want me to pick out one of these and start drawing?
I want you to pick out one of these. I want you to pick out one of these. I want you to capture those images, and tomorrow, after you wake up, you're going to text me, and we're going to jump on, and you're going to show me what you got, and I'm going to get you going in the right direction.
Okay.
And if you start going in the right direction, then we're going to make you throw all that away. We're going to get together. You're going to get this so that you can actually start drawing for real, that you can save it. And yes, I would like you to be able to come up with, now that's that's built. Let me see. Let me look at it closely.
It doesn't
Yeah,
look like it is.
No, that's built. That's built. That's not, you can't render to that quality.
Is it? Look at those 3.
No, you can't render to that quality, bud.
Hmm.
I tell you how you can usually tell when something's been rendered versus actually built. Here's the dead giveaways for me. See that outlet on the wall? You would never have an outlet. You would never find someone who put those outlets. We do try to put these frou-frou and this thing here, but this is actually, it's got to be constructed. That's got to be constructed. Yeah, that's got to be a real life. They went and took the photos after they fabricated the house.
Hold on, go back to that. Not that one. That one. Look in the background in the outside.
You think the green is just too green?
I don't know. It just.
It could be. It could be. You'd be surprised how much they can do.
I mean, with the new Unreal Engine 5, I don't know if they're using that or not, but
it could be. I still say I don't know anybody who's putting in these
the outlets.
the outlets and thermostats and things like that. That's what's telling me. Yeah, and also I've never seen anyone put all the diffuser grills and all of that stuff in. No. And the chain on there. You could model all that and you could get it close to looking like that. The furniture would be a little bit more telltale. I think I feel pretty confident that that's not rendered.
Yeah.
But it might be. It might be, dude. It really might be. You'd be surprised. How about this one? That's rendered. That's rendered.
Yeah, you can tell by the plants.
Well, I can tell a couple different ways. The biggest way that I can tell is I don't see any outlets. I see a repetitious pattern in the block. I see a bad bump map on this ceiling. I can actually see a little bit of stone up here above this line. That's rendered. This one's rendered.
Yeah.
See how you don't see a doorbell? You don't see any outlets on the outside. Probably. Let's see. Yeah, that was all rendered. All right, buddy. Till tomorrow. Text me once you're up and around and got your computer fired up.
Okay.
Later, buddy.
Later, man.